Well, everybody, welcome back once again to JJ's PC Builds. Ooh, let me kind of turn you over here a little bit. There we go. Oh, my goodness, we don't have enough lighting. Let me get this lighting there a little bit kind of situated. My bad. Today, we're going to talk about the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X. So, just to let you know, there's another video that I'm working on, and it's the benchmark of that new game that everybody's talking about. So we'll get into that later. I will have that video coming out soon enough. And y'all know the benchmarking tool that I told you about on Steam. So we're not going to get into that, but we are going to get into the 9950X and look at some benchmarks and see what it's about. So let's go to the action screen and see what's cooking. And we made it onto the action screen. Don't worry, I got the big cursor right here for you so you all can see it. It says the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X review by TechSpot. TechSpot done this, and you all know this is hardware unboxed. But I'm going to take and use some of their benchmarks and give you my commentary of what I think is good, bad, or ugly about this. And so let's just... And seems like that there's a score of 65 from TechSpot on this. Okay, this says, it's now time to check out the AMD most powerful Zen 5 desktop offering the new Ryzen 9 9950X. As usual, we will be doing some perspective of PC enthusiasts and covering general desktop tasks, and let's just go through the and look at it right here. But this is a 16 core, or is it? Yeah, 16 core, 32 thread processor. So the 9900X and the 9950X are the two that would be most focused on. But this says, now in the case of these new Zen 5 CPUs, the improvement over the Zen 4 has generally been very small for desktop users, especially those who are focused on gaming performance. For example, the 9900X or 9700X was 3% faster than the 7700X. So you got $350, $60 new CPU, and then you got a little bit over $200 CPU. So going from the 7700X with a little over $200 with 3% faster, it's kind of shaky. I mean, I would wait for, I just stay. If you're with the 7700X, just stay with it. So this says also too, whereas the 7700X was 21% faster than the 5800X. Okay, so I got the 5700X, which is 3 to 5% faster than mine. So that means that the 7700X should be 26% faster than my 5700X, just a per se. And it's day 2 years ago. Prior to that, the 5800X was 23% faster than the 3700X. So, moving on. So gamers have become accustomed to new Ryzen processor boosting games performance by at least 20% over the previous generation parts, which I always told you guys when it comes to the generation parts, at least if it's over 10%, it's not too bad. But anything below 10%, then you're cutting your face off when it comes to buying a processor. So if your processor is 5% slower than these new processors, then you're best just to wait for another generation, because it's not going to give you much advantage when it comes to, going up to the next generation. Unless the 800 series motherboards give some kind of advantage over the 600 series motherboards. Unless there's some kind of advantage that will boost these processors up higher than AM4 or AM5, sorry, because this is AM6. So if the 800 series motherboard can boost better performance for AM6, then who's to say that the 800 series motherboards can't boost the AM5 processors up the same way? So that's something to think about too. I mean, if you get a new series motherboard and it has better calculations and everything else and gives you better performance for your CPU, it wouldn't hurt to try your current CPU with that new motherboard to see if it's going to balance out and give you something better. So before you decide to buy a processor, wait for the 800 series motherboards to come out, which the 9000 X3D processors is supposed to come out before that. And then you're supposed to have the 800 series motherboards. So, like I said, September is going to be a busy month, I think. August is pretty much a busy month too, but September is going to be even busier if they bring out the X3Ds. Now, and also too, if Intel decides to launch Arrow Lake in September, unless they discontinued it and they decided to push it to next year. That's what I've been hearing they might do, is push it to next year for Arrow Lake. So we don't know yet. Now let's go through a little bit of the specs so we can see what's cooking on the specs. The 7950X has got the same amount of cores, same amount of threads. It was launched in September 2022, and the TSMC N5 FinFET is different from the TSMC N4 FinFET. So now the base clock, it looks like it gets 4.5 gigahertz on the 7950X compared to the 9950X base clock, 4.3 gigahertz. They both will boost up to 5.7 gigahertz. They both have two CCDs, two 8-core CCDs, and it's got 64 megs of L3 cache. Now, with your 7800 X3D, it's only got 96, so it's only got, less than 20 some more megabytes of L cache. So is it going to make too much of a difference? Well, that 64 megs right there should give you enough for good gaming. That's what I would think. But what bothers me so much is that this says it's got 28 PCIe 5.0 lanes. That could be an issue too with the RAM, the system RAM. And I know you guys are going to call me crazy on this, but I think that instead of them they targeted the PCIe 5.0 lanes, but they should have left some PCIe 4.0 lanes as well, because your graphics card's still running off of PCIe 4.0. But if they scaled it to where it'll go from PCIe 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0 on the X16 slots, then you got an advantage. So keep that in mind. But I doubt it on the 600 series motherboards, because I haven't really heard too much about a BIOS update for them because of these new processors. But I have heard that they did pop out with new programming. But I'm going to tell you about this. Okay. There's a pro and con to the 9950X and the 9900X. Now, I'm going to go back to the main screen for a moment because I want to have a powwow with you guys. Listen, those two processors, okay, once you set it up, the core sleep and everything else with the Xbox gaming and all that. Now, if you decide you want to change that processor from the 16-core 32 thread or the 12-core 24 thread, and you remove them out of your PC's motherboard, and you replace them with, let's say, an 8-core processor, then you're going to run into problems, because they were talking about this, that you have to so you got chipset drivers for your CPUs. AMD does. You have to uninstall the chipset drivers and put in new chipset drivers. But what a lot of reviewers are saying right now and recommending, that you do a fresh install on Windows if you decide you want to go from the 16-core 32 thread down to 8-core 16 thread. Me, on the other hand, I would take, and this is what I would do, before I went up to the 16-core 32 thread, I would take and all your information off of your current drive, and I would store it somewhere else on other than that drive. Or what you can do is, if you got an M.2 SSD, you can replace it with a brand new M.2 SSD, and then when you upgrade the CPU, to the 9950X, then I would just use a brand new SSD, leaving your other M.2 drive intact. That means put it in a nice cool place and keep it stored. Keep it to where it's not bowing or bending. Keep it nice and flat. Keep them pins covered, like cover it with non-static foam and keep it on a stored cool place. Now, if you ever decide to go back to the 8-core 16 thread, now all you got to do is take the one drive out of your motherboard, take your old drive, put it back in, replace the CPU, and then you're off to the races. All you got to do is update Windows and you're pretty much set, as long as you're using the same processor. Let's say you have a 5700X or a 7700X, and you want to switch it to the 9950X. So you store your processor in a nice cool place with your M.2 SSD, put them into like a box where you got, it's like non-static foam, put it in there and store it into a box, put it on the shelf, put on the box 7700X with M.2 and Windows operating system. So your personal information goes there. Now, as long as you made a copy of your personal information and put it onto one of these, and then when you go to install the new M.2 and you go to install the new CPU, and then you can put a clean install of Windows 11 on there and put all your apps back in and everything else. And then after that, you're set. Once you have everything all set, you got to turn on Game Bar with that new processor and everything else. But this will give you the advantage of not having just one, but two operating systems. One that would be designated for the 8-core processor, and one that will be designated for the 16-core processor. That's something I would do if it was me. I would split it off like that. At least I know for a fact that I would have the same information on both sides. Yeah, it takes a little bit of building, but, if you're going to do something like that, but that's something that I would do. But anyway, we had to have that little powwow because that's a little bit of a disclaimer with these CPUs. Now, you're looking at a TDP of 170 watts. I can tell you with processors, when it comes to it now these days, you can set the PPT down. If you want to set the PPT down to, like, let's say these processors will probably end up running good off of 105 watts. So you can lower your wattage if you want and just take and put a restriction on the PPT to hold it at 105. You can do that too. I got mine on my processor right now at 88 watts, but there's like a 3% variance using a PBO, Precision Boost Overdrive, which I don't use Ryzen Master PBO with Curve Optimizer. I don't use that in my system. I had a hell of a time uninstalling it, and by the time I got done installing it, it took me over 2 hours to uninstall that program. 2 hours, because it kept popping back in. So once I got it completely ripped out, I was done with Ryzen Master. So if you guys ever want to see me put up Ryzen Master, I'm not going to do it. That program has some flaws in it, and it doesn't make your processor run right. So I do everything out of the BIOS. I do all my settings in the BIOS that permanently set. I can set and walk. Just set and run it, and I'm off to the race. Done. Okay, now let's see. Both model features 32 megabytes of L3 cache per CCD. This is a positive to that, because when they did the 7950X3D, they put all the L cache on one CCD, which you have CCD1 and CCD2. They put everything on CCD2, and then when you like cut half of it off, you only could use 8 cores of CCD1, but you couldn't use CCD2. So you lose all your cache. So they decided that they're going to split it, which is not a bad thing to do. Put, half and half on each of the CCDs. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. So don't forget your drink and snacks, by the way. So knowing that, they got AVX 512 on there. I mean, you'll be lucky if they really implement a lot of AVX 512, but it's there for them to implement. Let's see what kind of test setup they got. Now, do keep in mind that AMD claimed that the Ryzen 9 9950X was faster than Intel's i9 14900K. Keep that in mind. And this is the test setup that they use. They got the 9000 series, 7000. They used the Gigabyte X670E Aorus Master motherboard, and they used okay, that's not too bad. They used G.Skill Trident Z5 RGB 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6000 CL30, and they gave all the codes. And for the 5000 series, they used the MSI MPG X570S Carbon Max Wi-Fi with G.Skill Ripjaw 5 series 32 gigabytes DDR4 3600 CL14, and they gave the codes to it. And they used for the 12th, 13th, and 14th gen Intel the MSI MPG Z790 Carbon Wi-Fi with G.Skill Trident Z5 RGB 32 gigabytes DDR5 7200 CL34. Oh, wow. That's kind of giving Intel a foot up on that, I would think. Going from 6000 with AMD DDR5 6000 and using on Intel DDR5 7200. I don't know. But they used a RTX 4090, a 1200 watt power supply, and they used a Team Group T-Force M.2 with 4 terabytes, which, if you're going to do testing, just testing only, I would suggest to have a fast enough drive with a certain amount of storage on it. You can get away with a 1 terabyte SSD drive or a 512 gigabyte SSD drive. But if you're storing games, then I can understand using a 4 terabyte. So, okay, now let's go into the Cinebench. This is multi-core. This is the 2024 9950X with the 2286 score compared to the 7950X with 2201. And right behind that would be the 14900K with 2167. Now, looking down the road, I understand that the 7950X 3D won't keep up with it because it's weird like that. But let's see, 12900K is not too bad. Now you got the 9700X at 1201, but you got a 5950X kind of spanking the 9700X by a couple hundred points. And you got the 5800X 3D down here at the bottom with the 5800X. So, yeah. I can tell you the point on mine, I got about maybe 729 on mine. So, yeah, I can concur with the 5800X. Okay, power the 12-volt rails. Let's see. The 7800X3D got 83 watts. 5800X3D got 90 watts. 9700X, 95 watts. 7700, 95 watts. 7900X3D, 117. 5800X, 117. But I'm going to throw in there the 5700X at 91 watts. I got a 91 watt max. So mine would sit right here above the 9700X, right there. But you got the 9950X, 229 watts. 7950X is 1 watt difference. 70, you're best off, so far it's always looking at the 7700X. And I know a lot of my viewers got the 7700X. So 14900K looks like 311 watts. So let's move on down the road a little bit. Single core. Let's see. 9950X hits 139 on the core. Then you got the 14900K at 138, 1 point difference. 9700X, you got a 3 point difference. The 12900K, you got a few point difference, but it's not that far off from the 7950X. So, and you look at the price at the 12900K. At least that's one CPU that's not having any issues right now. I'm going to deviate a little bit, and I'm going to go to Amazon really quick. Okay, so Amazon. And I want to give you guys a good look at the 12900. So if you look at the 12900K, it's got 16 core, up to 5.2 gigahertz, and it uses the LGA 1700 motherboard and 125 watts. But it's $280. So this one right here is $280, and then you got the KS version, and it's $320 or $319. And that's the hexa core. So I don't think that's a bad deal right there. If you're wanting to stay Intel, I know you guys are going to say, well, the 14th gen, come on, man. Well, come on, man, nothing. You try getting a 13th or 14th gen that doesn't have that power problem. That'd be a different story. Okay, let's go ahead and just roll this. 7-zip. Let's look at it. Here's 9950X. Got 191. Higher is better. 7950X 3D is definitely better. 7950X is definitely better. And it's 1 point above the 14900K. Okay, I'll give them that. 7-zip, 32 meg dictionary. 9950X at 267. Got 7950X at 274. I mean, and looking down here, that the 7700X is doing better than the 9700X. So, and it's doing, compared to 9700X, the 12900K is doing better. Okay, so you look at this price right here at $280 compared to something that's $360 some dollars, or just say $360. So that's a big difference, when it comes to the price. And guys, I'm just telling you my opinion here. I mean, ouch. I mean, seriously, ouch. Okay, Blender Open Data. Blender Open Data. Get this all situated here. I don't know why it keeps rolling that up. Okay, best it's going to get. 9950X is 273, 7950X is 259, and the 7950X 3D is 250. So It's not doing too bad. Like I said, you got the 9700X right here, and you got the 12900K here that's above it, and it looks like a 40-point difference. So I don't know. Let's just get past all the and go right to the gaming. Let's see, Baldur's Gate 3. We kind of went past all that other stuff because I know you guys have seen many content creator things, and we just want to deal with the gaming right now. That's all I'm saying. So 9950X is right here at 123.88 on the low. 7900X 3D has got 135 to 93. Okay, so far what I've seen AMD claim that the 9950X was supposed to be stronger than the 14900K. It kind of doesn't look like that here. Okay, it does not look like that here. So moving on down the road, guys. The power, Baldur's Gate 3, and I think this is at 1080p, guys. So power consumption was 113 watts compared to the 7700 or the 7800X 3D, which was at 58. I don't know. 7700X right here, 83 watts. That's not too bad. Last of Us Part 1 got 125 on the low, got 182 on the high, and it's still not pushing past the 14900K. Looks like 14900K took the lead, and the power consumption was at 145 watts compared to the 7800X 3D at 71. Okay, well, what we got here? Cyberpunk 2077 on high. We'll look at it right there on high. I don't know why that's doing that, but we'll get it right there. 9950X got 113 on the low, 150 on the high. 9700X took over the lead from the 9950X. So what? You got an 8-core 16 thread taking the lead over a 16-core 32 thread. And see the difference. 2-point difference between the two. 2-point difference. And, or of course, you got the 7800X 3D at 141 to 188. And we're going to look at the EPS rail 12 volt. Let's just first say this. Ooh. Okay, 12 volt rail. 136 watts compared to 70 watts. I don't know. It's not looking like it's power efficient. That's what I'm going to tell you. Hogwarts Legacy. We got 9950X at 81 on the low. We got 119 on the high. 7800X3 was 102 on the low and 135 on the high. I can tell you with the 20-point difference, 20 FPS difference between the two, I really don't see it really. And even keeping in notion that you're looking at an 8-point difference between, the 14900K and the 9950X. 8-point difference. That means the 14900K is 8 FPS points higher than this this new processor AMD has. Let's see, 7800X 3D. Wow. 9950X is right here, 141 on the lows, 168 on the high. Still, 14900K is still taking the lead. 10-point lead. Wow. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. I'm not going to make this a long video. Okay, we're going to come to the 13-point game average. RTX 4090 at 1080p. So 9950X, 111 on the low, 159 on the high. And look where the i9 14900K is. Okay, they got the same amount of lows, but you got a 11 FPS difference between the two. But the 7800X 3D is still at the top, being king. Okay, back to the main screen. Guys, this is what I'm going to tell you. This video is going to be a little bit different. Okay. One, I'm going to bring up a couple points. One, the 9950X and the 9900X are two that are not going to be any much different than each other. 9700X and the 9600X is the same way. There are some instances that where, you know, the 9700X overtakes the 9950X in a couple games. So, and with all them hoops and everything that you guys got to jump over just to get it to work, I mean, out of box experience, it's really bad. I'm going to tell you, it might be a good processor for you. It might be something you want to try, use, and see if you can modify it with Precision Boost Overdrive, you know, and try to mold it into something that'll be great on your system. That's fine. Hey, if you want to buy it, that is up to you. But if it was me, and I was left with $650, or if I had $700 on me, I would not spend $700 on a processor like this, especially when multi-core is not running at 100%. I can tell you that right now. And the problem they're having with the system RAM, not, you know, see, the system RAM should be clocking up to the 8,000 megahertz or microtransfers. But it seems that in AMD said the sweet spot is the 6,000 microtransfers. That's the sweet spot of it. That was the same thing with AM5. They said the same thing about the AM5. So what could be the problem is it could be the updates, the firmware update on the motherboard could be one issue why it's not clocking up where it needs to be. And it's causing crashes and everything else. You know, I watched a few videos on it, and, you know, I've watched it crash and everything else. So when it comes to it all, this new AM6, it's not there. This is something that I would tell you to save your money and wait for when they come out with something better than this. These processors right here will not. And the bad part about it is these processors can't overtake the 14900K, which has problems, has microcode issues and everything else, but they still benchmark the 14900K to be faster than the 9950X. So everything that, you know, I feel that AMD claimed on these CPUs were not correct. But also, too, hearing that they might come out with more 8,000 series processors, too. So if they do that and they step back and they go and build the 8,000 series up, then that could be something that you might want to look into as well. But when I told you earlier on the video that it could be a motherboard or a firmware issue, I think that this is where the problem lies. It's either a firmware issue on the 600 series because they don't have a 700 series, or it could be that these processors were designed for the 800 series motherboards, but everybody's just getting in their testing for right now. So I know when the new 800 series motherboards come out, that might be a game changer. It could be. Don't quote me on it, but it could be a game changer. So that's my thought on this for now. I'm sure I'm going to have more videos on this. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of benchmark outlook from TechSpot, which, you know, that's Hardware Unboxed. They do a great job, by the way. Make sure y'all give them a like on their videos as well. And, you know, go over there and subscribe with them as well. They're pretty good on their benchmarks. I didn't get it. I didn't get the CPU. AMD never sent me the CPU. So maybe one day they'll start sending me things and I'll be able to benchmark them and give you guys actual benchmarks. But it takes that, you know, you got to have 10,000 to 15,000 subscribers, which we're working towards. And hopefully one day we will. And that way we can get some solid product and not running into the issues of having to use everybody else's benchmarks. That's my, you know, the whole thing I'm going to be working towards is being able to save up enough to get these processors, even if these companies don't send them to me, being able to purchase them on my own with having no issues. But that's in the future. We got a lot of things cooking for the future. So do stick around for that. But I'm just giving you my 2 cents on this. And like I told you guys, it's not something I'm going to recommend to any one of my subscribers or viewers because I feel that they could have done a lot better and bumped this up at least. They could have at least gotten, you know, 6% more out of these CPUs. When they're sitting in between 5 and 7% uplift from last generation, that's not really a big jump, especially when last generation is basically overtaking these CPUs. So don't waste your money. If you want to buy it, that's up to you. I don't tell anybody you can't buy it. You know, if that's something you just want to jump into to test for yourself, then, you know, no problem there. So, but anyway, guys, this is the end of the video. And if you've made it to the end of the video, subscribe, put a like on the video, and also, too, don't forget about that notification bell when I post the next video. Till the next time and next video, and we will see you on the next one.